Valora 9. A dying world of red skies and burning metal. The planet had once been a place of green oceans and silver forests. Now it was a graveyard, smoke and ash stretching to the horizon, dotted with the glowing wrecks of human ships that had fallen from orbit. The Zalari Empire had come to finish what they started, the extinction of humanity. High above the battlefield, the alien flagship Vorkael hovered like a silver moon, its armor reflecting the fires below. Inside its command deck, Queen Arizen, ruler of 10,000 worlds, stood tall and still. Her armor gleamed like living crystal, her eyes cold as the void. Around her the air pulsed with the sound of alien voices, reports of victory, tactical updates, and the hum of ancient war machines. Yet the Queen was not listening. She was watching, below in the chaos of battle. The last human colony fought for its life. They were hopelessly outnumbered, small figures in scarred armor, taking cover behind burning tanks and shattered walls. Their energy rifles spat bursts of blue light that barely scratched the Zalari walkers advancing toward them. Their ships were broken, their supplies were gone. And still they fought. Arizen's lips curved in quiet amusement. "Stubborn creatures," she said softly. "They refuse to understand when they have lost." Her warlord bowed low beside her. "Shall I order orbital fire, my queen?" "End this farce?" She shook her head. "No, let them fight. I want to see how long courage lasts when death is certain." Her command deck fell silent. The screens flickered, showing the battlefield through multiple drone feeds. The screams, the smoke, the flashes of desperate combat, and then, through the chaos, one small figure caught her attention. A single human soldier. He stood apart from the others, positioned near a broken power relay tower at the edge of the ruins. His armor was scorched, his helmet cracked. A long cut ran down his arm, but he kept firing, precise, controlled bursts that dropped Zalari drones one by one. Arizen tilted her head. "Who is that?" Her aide scanned the feed. "No name recorded, my queen. His transponder reads—" The aide paused. "He is not retreating. His unit has fallen back, but he remains." "Alone?" she asked. "Yes," the queen narrowed her eyes. The human was covering his retreating comrades. A suicide stand. Her warriors advanced in waves, but the man did not move. He fought until his rifle overheated, then threw it aside and drew a sidearm. When that ran dry, he pulled a blade from his belt and kept going. It was madness. It was admirable, the alien warlord sneered. Primitive courage. He delays the inevitable, but Arizen said nothing. The human's armor cracked under plasma fire. He staggered, fell to one knee, yet even then he lifted his blade, as if defying the entire empire. When the Zalari surrounded him, he reached to his chest and pulled a small device from his armor, a power core. The warlord leaned forward. "Is he—" The explosion came before the question finished. A blinding white flash tore through the ruins. The shockwave hit even the upper atmosphere, rocking the Vorkael. Sensors screamed in alarm. Thousands of Zalari troops vanished in an instant, vaporized. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left of the soldier. Only a burning crater where he had stood. For the first time in years, the great Queen Arizen did not speak. Silence filled the command deck. Even the warlord, a creature of battle and pride, looked uneasy. "A waste," he muttered. He could not win. Arizen turned her gaze toward him, her voice low and sharp. "No, he did win." Her words chilled the air. Hours later, when the fires had cooled and the battlefield was secured, Zalari drones swept the ruins for data and remains. Among the melted metal and scorched armor, one of them found something strange, a small human device barely intact, a personal holo-recorder. It was brought to the Queen. She sat alone in her chamber, the recorder flickering in her hands. The air around her shimmered with the hum of her ship's engines. With a wave of her hand, the device activated. A projection appeared before her, a grainy image of the same soldier smiling faintly. His face was bruised, his eyes tired, but there was warmth in his voice. "Ilara," he said, "if you're seeing this, then I didn't make it back. Don't cry, my little star. Remember what I told you. Never bow to cruelty." Even if you stand alone, the Queen froze. "People like us," the man continued, "we don't fight because we hate. We fight because someone has to stand between darkness and the innocent. If that's me today, then so be it," he smiled one last time. "Live free. Be brave." Then the recording ended. The Queen sat in silence. The room felt smaller, colder. Outside, the stars shone like distant eyes watching her, judging her. She played the message again. And again, each time the words cut deeper. Never bow to cruelty, how strange, she thought. To speak of courage not as pride, but as kindness. To see death as a gift for others, not for glory. Her people would never understand that. For centuries, the Zilari had believed mercy was weakness. Compassion was disease. Victory was the only truth. But this one human, a dying soldier from a broken race, had destroyed an entire battalion, not out of hate but love. And somehow that made his act greater than all her conquests combined. Arizen stared out the window at the burning planet below. The glow of its dying fires reflected in her silver eyes. For the first time in her long reign, she felt something she did not recognize, a weight in her chest, a quiet ache. Guilt. Her voice, barely a whisper, filled the silence. You stood alone, and you were stronger than me. She turned off the hollow. The darkness of her chamber swallowed her, but the words of the human would not leave her mind. They echoed through her every thought, as steady as the beating of a heart she had long forgotten she possessed. Never bow to cruelty, even if you stand alone. And in that moment, though she did not yet know it, the heart of an alien queen began to change. The palace of the Zilari Empire was a monument of cold perfection. Towers of silver rose like spears into the clouds, and the skies above the capital burned with the light of endless shipyards. Yet within those shining walls, Queen Arizen felt nothing but silence. It had been 3 rotations since the fall of Valora 9, and still she could not forget the human's final message. She tried to bury it beneath duty, beneath the roar of politics and power. But the words haunted her dreams. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the soldier's face, the calm in his eyes, the fire in his heart, and that final explosion that had swallowed her army and her pride. The Queen sat on her throne of crystal, surrounded by the advisors of her High Council. They spoke of expansion, of conquest, of how the Empire's next target would be the moons of Talcor. But their voices sounded distant, meaningless. "My Queen," said Lord Krex, her warlord, his tone heavy with arrogance, "the humans are finished. Let us strike their allies before they regroup." Arizen did not answer immediately. Her gaze drifted to the grand window behind her throne, where the stars stretched endlessly across the void. "Tell me, Lord Krex," she said at last, her voice quiet but sharp. "When we destroy them all, what then?" The warlord frowned. "Then we rule uncontested. And after that?" "We keep ruling, my Queen, as we always have." She turned her eyes to him. "And what will be left to rule if all that remains is fear?" The room fell silent. None dared speak. The Queen rose from her throne and descended the steps slowly, her armor whispering with each movement. "For 1,000 years," she said, "we have crushed those who defy us. We call it strength, but what if strength is something else entirely?" Her advisors exchanged nervous glances. Lord Krex bowed stiffly. "My Queen, mercy is for the weak. You risk shaming our ancestors with such talk." Arizen's gaze turned to him, cold as ice. "Our ancestors are dead, Krex. Perhaps they cannot be shamed any further." She dismissed the council with a flick of her hand. Alone in the echoing hall, she walked to the archives. The massive doors slid open with a hiss, revealing rows of glowing memory crystals, records of every species the Zilari had conquered. She searched until she found the human section. It was small, dusty, almost forgotten. She touched the interface and images flickered to life. Human cities, music, art, laughter, families holding hands even in the ruins of war. For a long time she simply watched. "They create beauty even as they die," she whispered to herself. "Why?" the AI attendant answered in a cold voice. "It is illogical behavior. Humans appear to assign emotional value to survival rituals and shared memories." "Emotional value," Arizen repeated softly. She had no word for that in her language. To the Zilari, emotion was weakness, and yet that weakness had given a dying soldier more strength than her entire army. When she returned to her private chamber, she found herself standing before the hollow recording again. She played it once more just to hear the human's voice. "Never bow to cruelty," he said, "even if you stand alone." His words made something stir inside her chest, something she had long thought extinct. A quiet voice within whispered, "Perhaps that is what true power is, Over the next cycles, her behavior began to change. She cancelled several invasion campaigns. She ordered food and medicine sent to occupied worlds. She ordered the release of prisoners. Her generals were confused. Some whispered that their queen was sick. Others said she was cursed by the memory of a dead human. Lord Crex was furious. "My queen," he said one day in the war chamber, his claws clenched against the table, "the people whisper that you have grown soft. They say you are no longer fit to rule." Arizen looked at him calmly. "If mercy makes me weak, then perhaps weakness is what our kind needs," Crex snarled. "This is treasonous thought." "No," she said, her voice turning sharp as a blade. "It is evolution." The room went silent. She turned away, looking out at the stars. "You call the humans broken," she said. "But they have something we do not heart. We rule by fear. They fight for hope. And somehow hope endures when fear dies." Crex bowed stiffly, hiding his anger behind obedience. But as he left, his eyes burned with hatred. The seeds of rebellion were being planted. That night, Arizen stood alone on the balcony of her palace, the endless void stretching before her. The human's voice still echoed in her mind. She realized she had seen thousands of soldiers die for her empire, but not one had died like that human had, for love, for family, for something greater than themselves. A strange thought took root in her heart. Perhaps the human's death had not been the end of something. Perhaps it was the beginning. The stars shimmered in silence as if waiting for her decision. And deep within, the Queen of 1,000 Worlds began to doubt everything she had ever believed. The palace no longer felt like home. Every corridor Arizen walked echoed with whispers. Servants bowed lower than usual and guards avoided her gaze. The change had begun, slow, silent, dangerous. Her decisions were spreading through the empire like wildfire. To some she was becoming a visionary. To others she was becoming a traitor. And in the heart of that growing storm, one name was whispered with venom: Lord Crex. He was her oldest general, a warlord forged in blood and pride. Once her most loyal servant, now her greatest threat. Crex had always believed in the Zalari creed: conquer, dominate, destroy. To him mercy was rot, compassion was poison. He had watched his queen's strange transformation with cold fury, and he was not alone. The Empire's nobles, starlords, and admirals met in secret chambers plotting. "The queen has forgotten who we are," Crex said, his voice sharp and hard. "She spares the weak. She protects humans. She dares to question our strength." Around him the council murmured. "What would you have us do?" one asked. Crex smiled, a cruel, patient smile. "We remind her that mercy is treason." Meanwhile, in her private hall, Arizen stood before the great galactic map. Stars shimmered under her hand, each one a world conquered by her people. "So many lights, so much pain. We built an empire on ashes," she murmured. "And we called it peace." Her advisor, the gentle scholar Viriel, bowed beside her. "My queen, your reforms bring unease. The warlords whisper of rebellion." "Let them whisper," Arizen said. "The empire cannot live forever by the sword." "But can it live without it?" Viriel asked softly. Arizen did not answer. She turned away, her thoughts heavy. In the days that followed, she sent secret orders, ones even her council did not know of. She ordered her fleets to withdraw from occupied colonies. She ordered aid ships to deliver supplies to species once enslaved. To the people of the conquered worlds, she became something else, a rumor, a legend, the queen who would spare the stars. But inside the empire, rage grew stronger. Protests began on the military worlds. Armies loyal to Crex started refusing her commands. The balance of power was shifting, and she could feel it slipping through her fingers. One night, as she stood alone in her throne room, the great doors opened with a hiss. Lord Crex entered without permission, a bold move that spoke volumes. His armor gleamed black, marked with scars from 100 battles. He bowed only slightly. "You called for me, my queen?" She turned slowly, her eyes calm but cold. "Yes, I want to understand you, Crex. Why do you hate what I'm becoming?" He laughed, a low, bitter sound. "Because you are no longer the queen I followed. The Arizen I served would have burned 10 worlds to keep her throne. Now you kneel to human ideals, weakness, pity, restraint." She stepped closer. "You call it weakness. I call it strength." "Strength," he hissed. "Strength is fear. Strength is control. Without it, you are nothing." "No," she said quietly. "Without it, we might finally be free." His eyes blazed. You speak like one of them. Perhaps I have learned from them, she replied. Perhaps that is what terrifies you. For a moment, neither moved. The air between them was electric, sharp with tension. Then Krex bowed again, slower this time, the gesture mocking. Be careful, my queen. There are those who do not share your enlightenment. He turned and left, but his words lingered like poison in the air. Arisen watched him go, her pulse steady, but deep down she knew war was coming. 2 nights later, her sensors detected an unauthorized transmission. It was sent from the palace itself, encrypted, hidden and directed to Krex's personal fleet. Treason. She traced the source to one of her own guards who, when confronted, fell to his knees in terror. Forgive me, my queen, he cried. They promised to spare my family. Arisen's expression did not change. And now? The guard's voice broke. Now they are already dead. The queen dismissed him quietly. There was no need for punishment. The empire was already rotting from within. She returned to her chamber and stood before the hollow of the human soldier again. His voice echoed softly in the dark room. Never bow to cruelty. Even if you stand alone. She whispered the words under her breath. Even if you stand alone. The next day she gathered her loyal fleet commanders in secret. Krex will move soon, she told them. When he does, we do not strike first. We protect the innocent. No civilian world will burn in my name again. My queen, one of them asked, what if the people turn against you? She looked at him and said, then I will stand alone. And so, as the empire trembled on the edge of civil war, the alien queen who once ruled through fear prepared to face her greatest enemy, not another race but her own. The stars outside flickered like watchful eyes, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would decide what kind of power should rule it, cruelty or compassion. The great halls of the Zellari palace were filled with unease when the human ship arrived. It was small, old and scarred by travel, yet it moved through the void with quiet confidence, escorted by a dozen Zellari warships. To most of the Empire it was a relic of a defeated species, but to Queen Arisen it was something far more dangerous, a mirror of what she had become. The ship docked at the royal port, and from its airlock stepped a single human woman. She wore a dark flight uniform, her posture straight, her eyes unflinching. Soldiers whispered as she passed, "A human! Here, alive?" She ignored them. When she reached the throne chamber, Arisen was already waiting. The alien queen sat upon her crystal throne, radiant and still, her silver gaze cold but curious. The guards lined the walls, weapons ready, their claws tight around the triggers. Yet the human woman did not bow. Instead, she looked straight into the queen's eyes. "I am Captain Ilara Voss," she said, representative of what remains of the human alliance. The sound of her voice echoed through the chamber like a blade against stone. Arisen studied her carefully. The name struck her heart like a whisper from memory. Voss. She remembered the hollow recording. The soldier's voice. "Ilara, my little star." "You are the daughter," the queen said softly. Ilara's expression did not change. "Of the man you killed." Murmurs filled the hall. The guards stiffened, expecting the queen to strike her down. But Arisen only nodded. "Yes," she said. "I remember him. Do you?" Ilara's voice trembled, not from fear but fury contained by discipline. "He died defending people who couldn't fight. And you slaughtered him, then destroyed his world." "He destroyed my army," Arisen replied quietly. "And he showed me something your kind holds that mine never understood." Ilara frowned. "And what's that?" "Honor, compassion, the will to stand alone against cruelty." The human's eyes softened, if only for a moment. "My father always said compassion was strength. You don't have to be the strongest to be right. You just have to keep standing." The queen rose from her throne, her towering frame casting a long shadow across the floor. "Why have you come here, human?" "Revenge?" Ilara shook her head. "No, I came for peace." The words struck the chamber like thunder. The nobles gasped. "Peace? Between Zellari and humans? Impossible." Arisen tilted her head, intrigued. "Peace after all that was lost?" "Because if we don't stop fighting," Ilara said, "then his death means nothing." For a long moment neither spoke. The only sound was the hum of the palace engines far below. Then the queen stepped closer. "You speak as he did," she said, with conviction. "With heart. I speak because I must," Ilara replied. "My people are dying, and your empire is tearing itself apart. We both lose if this continues. You're brave, Arizen said quietly. Or foolish. Both maybe, Elara said with a faint, tired smile. It runs in the family. The Queen almost smiled back. Almost. But then the great doors burst open. Lord Krex stormed in, his armor dark and his face twisted with rage. "My Queen!" he shouted. "You allow this creature to stand in our sacred hall?" Arizen turned slowly, her voice calm. "This creature comes under my protection." "Protection?" Krex roared. "She is the daughter of your enemy. Her kind killed our brothers." "And we killed hers," Arizen said. "Do not forget that." Krex's claws clenched. "Your mercy blinds you, my Queen. You have become what you swore to destroy." Elara stepped forward. "She is trying to save you," she said. "And you're too proud to see it." Krex's eyes flared with hatred. "Silence, human." He lunged, but before he could strike, Arizen's hand snapped out. Her energy blade flashed, stopping inches from his throat. The hall went still. "Touch her," the Queen said, her voice low and cold, "and I will erase your bloodline from the stars." Krex froze, his fury barely contained. Slowly he stepped back and bowed, though his eyes promised vengeance. He turned and stormed out, the great doors slamming shut behind him. When the silence returned, Elara looked up at the Queen. "You risked everything to defend me," she said quietly. "Why?" "Because," Arizen said, "your father's words did not die with him." Elara's voice softened. "He believed even enemies could find peace." "Then perhaps he was right," the Queen said. "Perhaps it begins with us." Later that night, Arizen stood on her balcony, watching the stars shimmer above her world. Behind her, the human ambassador slept in the guest chamber, guarded and safe. The Queen's thoughts were heavy. She could feel the Empire shifting, loyalty slipping away, rebellion growing stronger. And yet, standing there under the stars, she felt something she had not felt in centuries: hope. For the first time, she imagined a future not ruled by fear but by understanding. A fragile future, born from the courage of one human's death and his daughter's unbroken will. But as the winds howled across the palace spires, she knew one truth with chilling certainty: Lord Krex would not remain silent for long. The storm broke sooner than anyone expected. It began with silence, a transmission cut, a fleet that failed to report, a planet that stopped answering calls. Then came the fire. Across the Empire, banners of rebellion rose under a single name: Lord Krex. The warlord who once swore loyalty to Queen Arizen now declared her a traitor. He called her the human queen, the one who betrayed her blood for the sake of a lesser race. His words spread like poison through the stars. "She has forgotten what it means to be Zelari," his voice thundered across 1,000 worlds. "She kneels to humans, to weakness, to mercy. If she will not lead us to glory, then I will." Entire fleets turned their weapons toward the capital. Cities loyal to the Queen were bombed, starports seized, and loyalists executed in the streets. The Empire, once united under fear, was tearing itself apart. Arizen watched the chaos unfold from her war chamber. Her advisors begged her to strike first, to crush Krex and restore order through fire. But the Queen shook her head. "No. If we become monsters to stop monsters, we gain nothing." "But my Queen," said her scholar Virihel, trembling, "they will kill you if you wait." Arizen looked out at the stars, her voice steady. "Then they will learn what it means to kill a queen who fights for peace." She turned to her generals. "Prepare the fleet. Evacuate civilians from the outer colonies. We do not fight for conquest anymore. We fight to protect." Even as the rebellion spread, help came from the most unlikely place: the humans. Captain Elara Voss, the daughter of the fallen soldier, stayed by the Queen's side. She offered her ships, her crew, and her heart to the cause. "You could flee," Arizen told her once. "Save your people and let mine burn." Elara shook her head. "My father wouldn't run, and neither will I. This isn't just your fight anymore." Together they forged an alliance no one thought possible: human and Zelari ships flying side by side, sharing codes, sharing supplies, fighting for something greater than survival. The galaxy called it madness. The Queen called it hope. When Krex's forces finally reached the capital system, the sky itself burned. His fleet blotted out the stars, thousands of warships bearing the mark of the old empire. The Queen's loyalists formed a shield around the planet, their numbers half that of Krex's, their resources low, their morale fragile. Yet no one retreated. In the heart of her flagship, the Vorkail, Arizen stood before her assembled commanders. The air was tense, heavy with fear. She looked at them, warriors, humans, aliens alike, and said, "For ages we ruled by fear. We crushed those who disobeyed us. We believed strength meant domination. But now I tell you, strength is not how long you can hold the blade. It is how long you can hold your heart." A hush fell over the room. Even the humans listened in awe. "Krex fights for control," she continued. "We fight for choice. He fights to own the stars. We fight to free them. So fight with me, not as soldiers of empire, but as protectors of life itself." The room erupted in cheers. Engines roared to life. The fleet moved out. The Battle of Zila Prime began. Space itself became a storm of fire and light. Ship after ship exploded in blinding bursts, their wreckage drifting through the void. The Queen's forces fought with desperate unity. Human pilots guided Zelari cruisers through maneuvers their alien minds had never conceived. Zelari engineers repaired human ships mid-battle, sharing oxygen, energy, hope. For every fleet Krex destroyed, 2 more worlds rose against him. His hatred only grew. He broadcast to the galaxy, his voice filled with venom. "Arizen has betrayed our kind. She is infected by human disease. I will purge her and cleanse the stars." But in the heart of battle, the Queen remained calm. She knew Krex's rage blinded him. Every move he made was predictable. Every strike, emotional, desperate, yet the cost was high. Millions died, worlds burned, hope flickered. Then came the breaking point. Krex's flagship appeared from hyperspace, a monster of war 10 times larger than any ship in her fleet. Its main cannon charged, glowing with crimson light. "He's targeting the planet!" Viriel shouted. "If he fires, the capital will fall." Arizen clenched her fists. "Not while I breathe." She ordered all remaining ships to shield the world. "Form around me," she commanded. "We hold the line." Ilara's voice came through the comms. "Queen, your ship can't take that kind of fire." "Then let him come," Arizen replied. "I will end this with my own hands." The enemy fleet advanced. Explosions tore through the void. The Queen's flagship shook violently as energy waves slammed into its hull. Alarms screamed. Crew members shouted. But she stood at the bridge window unflinching, eyes locked on the red glow of Krex's cannon charging in the distance. And somewhere inside her heart, she heard the voice of the dead human once more. "Never bow to cruelty, even if you stand alone." She whispered it to herself like a vow. Not today. Outside, the Queen's fleet closed ranks, human and alien ships united in a fragile shield of hope. And as the stars trembled with fire, Arizen prepared for the battle that would decide not just the fate of her empire, but the soul of the galaxy. The skies above Zilar Prime burned like the heart of a dying sun. The rebel armada had surrounded the Queen's fleet, their red banners shimmering through the clouds of plasma and wreckage. Queen Arizen stood at the bridge of her flagship, the Vorkail, her armor cracked, her crown dented, yet her eyes blazed with a light that no weapon could extinguish. "Shields at 20%, shouted her second-in-command. "We can't hold much longer." "We hold," Arizen replied calmly, "until the last breath." Outside, human and Zelari ships fought side by side, weaving through enemy fire. The alliance that should never have existed was now the only thing keeping the capital from annihilation. And at the center of the storm, Krex's colossal warship moved closer, an iron leviathan armed with weapons capable of vaporizing cities. His voice echoed across all frequencies. "You should have died with your weakness, Arizen. Look what your mercy has done. Your empire burns because of you." The Queen's voice cut through the static like steel. "No, Krex, my empire burns because of what we became. You are its last shadow." A blast struck her ship, throwing her from the command platform. The deck trembled, alarms screamed, and smoke filled the air. But Arizen rose, gripping her spear staff, her gaze fixed on the red glow of Krex's ship approaching. "Prepare for boarding," she ordered. "We're taking this fight to him." The bridge crew froze. "My queen, that's suicide." "Then we die with purpose," she said, her voice calm, final. "Signal Ilara. Tell her to hold the line." Minutes later, a small Zelari strike pod detached from the burning flagship and streaked toward the enemy's vessel. Inside, Arizen and a squad of her finest warriors braced themselves. Through the viewport, the rebel warship loomed like a dark god. They slammed through its hull in a burst of molten metal and smoke. The moment the hatch opened, chaos erupted. Krex's soldiers rushed in, their armor black and gleaming, firing plasma bolts through the narrow corridors. Arisen moved like lightning, her spear a blur, her strikes clean and deadly. Every motion carried centuries of fury, but also something new, purpose. Her warriors fell one by one until only she remained. She reached the central chamber, massive, lined with red banners, and lit by the pulsing glow of the ship's main reactor. And there, waiting for her, stood Lord Krex. His armor was scarred, his blade humming with energy, his eyes burning with betrayal. "You've come to finish what your weakness began," he growled. "I've come," Arisen said, her voice steady, "to end what our arrogance created." Their weapons clashed, sending sparks across the chamber. Every strike was thunder, every movement a storm. Krex fought with rage, his blows heavy and merciless. Arisen fought with control, her strikes graceful and precise. But he was stronger, his fury feeding his power. "You betrayed our blood for humans," he roared, driving her back. "You turned our empire into a sanctuary for the pathetic." "I gave them what we never had," she answered, parrying his blade. "A chance to choose their own fate." Krex swung again, knocking her weapon from her hand. She fell to one knee as he raised his sword high. "You are no queen," he hissed. "You are nothing." Before the blade could fall, a blast rang out. Krex staggered, his armor sparking. He turned, and there at the doorway stood Ilara Voss, smoke rising from the barrel of her weapon. "She's more than you'll ever be," Ilara said, stepping forward. Krex's snarl twisted into rage. He lunged at her, and she fired again, but his blade struck true, piercing her chest. She fell into Arisen's arms. "No!" the queen cried, catching the human as blood spilled onto her hands. Ilara smiled weakly, her voice faint. "Don't stop. You can still change it all." Arisen's heart cracked. "You saved me." "My father would have done the same," Ilara whispered. Her eyes dimmed. "Now you know what he meant." Then her breathing stopped. Something inside the queen shattered. She laid Ilara down gently, then rose to her full height. Her aura flared, silver light blazing around her like a star reborn. Krex charged, roaring. "You side with the dead." "No," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I stand with the living." She caught his blade mid-swing, snapped it in half, and drove her spear through his chest. Energy exploded outward, shaking the ship to its core. Krex fell to his knees, eyes wide in disbelief. "You were weak." "No," Arisen said softly. "I finally became strong." She pulled her weapon free, and the warlord collapsed. The ship began to crumble as explosions tore through its hull. The queen carried Ilara's body to the escape pod and launched it toward the planet below. As fire consumed the vessel, Arisen looked out one last time at the stars. The voice of the human soldier echoed in her mind, calm and proud. "Never bow to cruelty. Even if you stand alone." She closed her eyes. "I stood human, and I did not bow." The flagship exploded in a burst of light that outshone every star around it. From the planet's surface, the people saw it, a streak of silver fire across the sky. And in that moment, the legend of the human queen was born.